Test, test. Test, test. Welcome, welcome to TVOSJ. This is the voice of San Joaquin, and now it is time for Connections.
And good evening. This is Peace and Justice Connections. This evening we are with Julie Schardt, who's going to talk with us about what the League of Women Voters is doing these days in preparation for the election and also in preparation for the new school year, because there's a new rule, and I don't know if it's really exactly a new rule, but there's a rule that allows younger people to take part. So what's that all about, Julie?
Well, it does, this has been the case for quite a while, that you can vote at age 18, but
yes.
In California and a lot of other places, but specifically in California, you can pre-register at ages as young as 16.
Okay.
So 16 to 17-year-olds, but I'm here specifically to talk to you about this wonderful program, this new program.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the 16-year-old registration drive.
We are.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is, and
okay.
That's what this has to do.
Very good.
It has to do with it, and I'm going to tell you how it's going to unfold.
Excellent.
It's called My Vote, Our Future.
Okay.
And we think that's really good messaging for young people.
Yeah.
Last year and the year before, the League of Women Voters sent out teams of league members to high schools who were willing to participate.
Right.
And there would be 2 or 3 or 4 of us who would actually go into a government or an econ classroom where most of the kids are seniors.
Right.
And we talked to them about the importance of voting, and we would do an activity with them just to, get them up for registering to vote, and then we would walk them through the process of registering to vote. Now, a lot of young people do it when they go to get a driver's license. It's
Okay.
automatic,
Right.
but not every kid
everybody
can
drives.
do that. Not
Yeah.
everybody drives yet.
Right.
And we had a lot of success, and as a result of that, we had over 1,500 students throughout San Joaquin County who were registered to vote. And
How many?
1,500.
Wow.
So that happened at a couple of schools in Manteca and Stockton and a couple of schools in Tracy, and we went out more than once. We also established some really good relationships with the schools.
And that was last year at the end of the year?
That was throughout last year and the year before. We went, for example, our team, we went to Edison School a couple of different times. But you know that the mission of the League of Women Voters of the United States is to educate the citizens, to prepare them to become informed voters. We are a completely nonpartisan organization. We never advocate for a candidate. We never
Right.
advocate for a party.
Right.
But
Right.
we are a political organization because
Right.
voting is political.
Right.
And what the League of Women Voters will do is take a look at an issue if we think that it's
Like
really
a proposition
important.
or?
Well, but not, yes, and sometimes propositions or other issues, say, that have to do, for example, our twin tunnels.
Oh,
the
yes.
League of Women Voters did a lot of studying about it, and
Uh-huh.
that means taking a look at something over a long period of time, hearing from a lot of different people. And when the League of Women Voters comes out and says, well, we support this idea or we don't support that one, it's
Right.
after a lot of studies. So you
Right.
know that when you get your voting information, the pamphlet, you can
Right.
see, for example, an initiative, and sometimes you'll see a couple of organizations for it, and if you see the League of Women Voters in support of an initiative, it's because they've given it a lot of study. So I
Right.
just wanted to make sure that everybody
Right.
knows that we are nonpartisan, but
Right.
everything about our political process is really important
Right.
to us.
So you would never endorse an individual candidate, regardless of whether if it's a partisan or a nonpartisan race. Like, say, if it's obviously it would be like if it's a presidential thing, you wouldn't come down on one side or the
Right.
other. But also, if it comes down to a supervisor
Yeah, there are
or a city
nonpartisan
council,
offices, but we
Right.
don't
School
endorse
board.
there either.
and you guys also sponsor debates or panel discussions.
Well, we do. During the election, we have candidate forums, and we invite candidates for the various elected offices to
Right.
show up. And we try to make sure and believe me, we try really hard to pull it together at a time that everybody can participate.
Yeah,
A
like
couple of
herding
times
cats.
we've had to say, well, this particular office, we're not going to have any representatives, and we won't just allow one candidate to show
Right,
up and
right,
speak. But because we have a really good reputation, candidates want to participate.
Sure.
Because we're really careful about how we present questions, and we make sure that they're not all just from us, but we invite different entities within non-government organizations and things to who might have an interest, suggest questions and things like that.
So it's a reminder that in the upcoming election year, pay attention or listen to or be aware of debates that are going to be sponsored by the League of Women Voters. I'm sure we'll put those, we'll advertise those in Connections, and that they will come up with enough time before the election for people to come out and
Yes.
hear people talk about issues rather than seeing how much money they can throw at
That's exactly right.
an
Yeah,
issue
and
or
it's important because
campaign.
those candidate forums happen here, so that people who live here, who have interests here,
Yeah.
can come and see the candidates and hear what they have to say.
Yeah, so you hold those like at Delta College a lot of times?
They've been at Delta College pretty much because we've worked with Delta
They have a nice big
to help set them.
auditorium.
They have big auditoriums, and they help us set up all the technology that needs to happen, the microphones and the streaming and things like
Yeah.
that, and we've had a lot of success with those.
Well, and the thing is also you have, although now you're having high school kids registering, they can't necessarily vote, but generally community college kids can vote. And so what you can do is you have candidates coming onto a venue where you have a voting public who
Right.
can come out and listen to the issues and decide.
Exactly. We'd
Yeah.
like for them to show up more, but we also understand how busy students are. But
Cool.
that leads to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
and
So
that
what
is-
what is this thing called again?
This is called My Vote, Our Future, and it's empowering the voters of tomorrow. And I told
Okay.
you we went into high schools because the League of Women Voters, the National League of Women Voters, put together a pilot program whereby they looked at what they wanted to find out the most effective way to reach out to youth, to encourage them to vote, to give them the information they had to vote. And what they found, looking at the various ways, was the best thing is to go into a classroom and talk to the kids, talk to them about voting and get some response from them and register them to vote. It's better than, setting up
A table?
at an event or going into the cafeteria or
even on
something
campus,
like that.
right?
On campus.
Right.
But we had success.
Because you have their attention, and they're
Yeah,
used
you
to
have their
they're
attention.
used to listening in a
Yeah.
classroom setting.
But when we did it, it was people like me.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's the League of Women Voters, we also have men who are members, and maybe I should get you to join the League of Women
Yeah,
Voters. But it was largely retired women who went into the classroom to do the registering, and we always felt respected by the teachers and by the kids.
Yeah.
But then the league thought, well, what if we were to have high school students reach out to their peers, their
Yeah.
classmates to vote? And we've been in communication with Shasta County, which is a small county, one high school,
yeah.
but they've been doing this for 4 years. And when they started, they had some struggles, but they've been doing it for 4 years, and they've had a lot of success.
Shasta County, is that like
Shasta
Reading?
County, Reading.
Reading.
And their county office of education is in their county building. I mean,
Yeah,
their board of
yeah.
supervisors is right next to the
Well,
county
they
office.
they have Shasta College up there, don't they?
I
mean, there's a
believe
community
they do.
college. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but it's
It's a small school.
it's a small area, but maybe because it was small, they were able to figure out how to make it work. So it was helpful
Wow.
to communicate with them.
Yeah.
And
This peer-to-peer thing.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so when we decided locally, because we had been into the classrooms, we thought, well, why don't we try this to see if we get even more kids to respond?
Right.
So we've been working since the middle of last school year, and we reached out to the San Joaquin County Office of Education and spoke to Superintendent Jamie Musalimas, who is,
Okay.
he really has an open door policy.
Okay.
For him, it's all about the kids. In fact,
Very good.
I don't know if he's ever been on your show, but
Yeah, no.
he has had his mind changed about some issues because he always looks at what the bottom line is for children and young
yeah.
people.
Very good.
And so he said he was on board. He said, yes, how do we make this happen?
Really?
And first
Wow.
we thought, well, let's see if we can try something before the end of the school year. But it just...
Last year.
We met, yes, but we met and tried to get it started in February, and there wasn't enough lead time. So what we did was we made a plan for... we wanted to reach out to every single high school in the county, and we thought it would be a good idea to see if we could partner with the San Joaquin County Registrar of Voters,
Okay.
which we have done.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you met Melinda Dubroff, but she's our registrar.
She has
of
been
voters.
so supportive of Earth Day. She's
Yes,
just wonderful.
she has. She
Yeah.
is wonderful, and that's another person who I don't know how she does it because she's got a huge job, but she
Pays
wanted
attention.
to hear what we had in
Yeah.
mind, and she was on board right from the very
Yeah.
beginning. So this is not just the League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County, it's also the San Joaquin County Office of Education
Sure.
and the San Joaquin County Registrar of Voters. And what we did was the County Office of Education sent out a letter to every single school district superintendent and every single high school principal in the whole of San Joaquin County. I
Okay.
couldn't tell you how many that
Sure.
would be, but it's many.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And we thought, this is great. This is a letter that says the last 2 weeks in September and I think the last 2 weeks in April have been designated as voter education weeks for all of the school systems. And that information is part of the policy. I don't know that it's been codified, but all the schools have been encouraged to participate, the high schools especially.
Sure.
And so we thought, well, this is perfect. We can get schools prepared for those weeks in September 16th through the 27th, I think.
Excellent.
And that went out in a letter, and it said, guess what we're doing for you? We would like for your high school to participate. We would like for you to send some students, and we are planning a training for 2.5 hours on August 26th. We let them know this at the end of last school year.
Great timing. Yeah.
Well,
right.
great timing.
Yeah.
But we sent out this wonderful letter, and we weren't hearing back from anybody. So league members, what we did was we kind of divided up schools. I felt a
Yeah,
connection with
sure.
several of the schools here in Stockton.
Yeah, Edison.
And so I made a phone call. To Bear Creek High School,
Okay.
and I spoke to the principal's secretary about this letter that was sent. And she said,
Sure.
you know, I opened all of his letters, and I haven't seen this letter. And I said, oh, that's strange. And then she said, could it have come through email? And I thought, well, I thought a
Maybe.
letter went. I thought it was a paper letter, but of course, you know, what they did was the County Office of Education sent this letter by email to everybody. And I don't know about you, but I know when I
Oh,
see
man.
emails, I'll look at and see who they're from. I think,
Yeah.
I'll look at that later.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was a lot of principals missed it. And so
Sure.
we went to every single high school that we thought we could connect with
Yeah.
and tried to get in the front door. And we did. We were
Yeah.
able to meet with some people. But as much as we've had success, it was a disappointment not to get phone calls back from everybody. But I did find out that if you know the right people, that you'll get a response.
Yeah.
So we have probably have about 10 high schools now who responded.
Well,
So
that's a lot.
well, that is a lot. So we probably will have 50 to 60 students. So what this is going to look like is on Monday, August 26th, which is a week from today, from 4 until 6 o'clock at the County Office of Education.
Okay.
We will have a training for students from the participating high schools, and they will be coming with an advisor because it's good to have an adult from that campus.
So are those schools back in session now?
Oh, they are.
They
And
are.
and another problem was that the different school districts started at different times.
Different
I
times,
believe
yeah.
Lincoln just started last week.
Oh, man.
Stockton started early in August, and Lodi, I'm not sure. They started in between then.
So you'll have the one training. Would there be another
Well,
follow-up training if there turns out
this
to
one
be?
training is going to have a lot of things packed into it, but the good thing is we have
Might want to
young
videotape it
people.
and
Well,
give it to
that's a
people.
good idea, and we've been We've gotten the tech people on board, and
Yeah.
so. But you reminded me. I don't
Because-
think we did find out about that. We're going to have pictures taken,
Yeah.
but we should video.
Because if kids can't show up on
Yeah.
that day, because sometimes, I mean, one day, one
Yeah.
time, it's not convenient. You can just
Yeah.
email it out to them and
Thank
just
you
say,
for that.
yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But the young people who show up, they will. You know, we have goodie bags for them. We'll have
Yeah.
a T-shirt. They've got a specially made pin. The county registrar of voters had a really nice pin made with "My Vote, Our Future" on
Yeah.
it. It's a really nice looking pin.
Great.
And then they'll have snacks that we figured they'll start showing up at 3:30. So we'll have activities for them
Now,
to do.
Office of Ed is down by the airport, right?
It is, and it's going to be in the Wentworth building
Okay,
in Burwood 1 and 2.
And you know the address on that? It's Arch Airport Road.
I
in
don't.
The corner
Can I
of
get it to you?
something. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
immediately when you exit the freeway off of 99 onto Arch, you see that
Yeah.
whole big complex.
Yeah, and when you pass by the airport, the post office.
Yes,
old
the post office in Wentworth is the one off of. It's at Giannichini and Trans World.
Okay.
So,
okay.
but I'll send that to you because.
Do you have an email address that people can check out, or
You know,
or
what
a
we've-
website address, or a Facebook something?
what they can do is contact the League of Women Voters, but it's mostly through me. So I can give you, if it's okay for me to give my email for people to email,
please.
or can they?
Oh,
is that
definitely.
okay?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I'm going to say that I'm juliaschardt@gmail.com.
Okay, Julia Schardt, all one word.
JuliaSchardt@gmail.com.
Just like it sounds.
Yeah, just like it sounds. And
Yeah.
I'd be glad to answer any email.
You bet.
But also, if anybody who's listening who has any connection to any high school, it would certainly help if they would call either their kids' high school or where they went to high school and say, hey, this is a great program. Are you participating?
Now, this is for the peer-to-peer thing, right?
This is for the peer-to-peer. And so what we'll be doing on that day when the students and their advisor come, they will learn a little bit about the history of voting. We will be pulling out how they feel about certain issues. And then they're going to have a chance to get together as their own group from their own school after talking to some of the others to decide how they want this to play out. So it might be that they want to have a rally where they announce it. And if they want to set up a table in front of the cafeteria, I'm sure that when kids see their classmates there, they're going to say, you know, we want to do it this way. Or there are a lot of community events near high schools, and so they could actually reach out in different places there. One of the reasons this is so important is that fewer than 25% of the 18 to 24-year-olds who are eligible to vote actually vote. Now, there's different reasons for it. We've done some research about that. We're going to be showing a short video, and everything from kids being saying, well, why should I vote? My vote doesn't matter. Or it's too confusing. There are too many things on the ballot. Or somebody even said, I don't even know the process of registering to vote. How do I fill out, you know, my registration? How do I fill out a ballot?
So even in the 2018 election, it seemed like some of the most remarkable thing about that was it seemed that more young people did get out and vote.
More young people did
in
get
a
out
midterm
and vote.
election.
Yes.
And now then 2020 election, which is like a regular presidential election, a lot of people are more jazzed about
and that's
voting.
it's that way for a presidential election. So
for folks who are used to voting, but also for folks who may not
for
be
young
used
people.
to. Right, for young folks.
But we also, I think when you think of voting, you think of voting for a president.
Sure.
And maybe voting for your congressional representatives. But we have a lot of things down the ballot. And just as critical are the initiatives that come up. And when you think about the fact that fewer than 25% of young people vote, you look at people like you and me, who's making decisions for young people. And when they think about that, granted, they love their parents, they respect their teachers, their adults, but do they want us to make the decisions for them? And that's why we want them to understand.
Right. Well, and that's the reason why I think a lot of issues that affect young people tend to get ignored or put on the back burner is because the politicians know they can afford to ignore the school tuition issues or the affordability of housing issues or the minimum wage issue because they don't have they're never called to task by voters because the voters who are actually voting are folks who are our age and older who have a different set who may have a different set of issues.
Yes, because you think about how you might have thought about things when you were younger and how things evolve for a lot of people as we get to be older voters. But you know, one thing that's happened in the last couple of years is a lot of young people have been willing to step out and talk about issues that are important to them. And I was at an event the other day, and a young man who's a Davis student was very eloquent and very passionate, and I can't repeat some of the things he said, but he was heartfelt, and
UC
he knows
Davis,
his stuff.
college.
He knows his stuff. This was in Sacramento, but young people are aware. They just need to be encouraged to put that awareness to work. And like I said, we are a nonpartisan organization, so it's more important to us that young people know that they can vote, that they have the rights and the responsibilities of being an informed voter, and they need to get out and make those decisions that are going to be impacting them.
You know, I mean, I know one of the arguments is, well, you know, my vote doesn't really count that much, you know, why it's not really important. But, you know, if it were so unimportant, people would be spending so much money on trying to influence these elections.
Exactly
they
right.
wouldn't be trying to hide their contributions.
Yes.
They wouldn't be, you know, throwing billions and billions of dollars. And, you know, at these elections, which have only grown in terms of the dollar amounts that have gone into them, just geometrically, it's just gone up in astounding numbers. And, to think that, my vote doesn't make a difference. Well, or it isn't valuable. It is so valuable. I mean, if you look at the cost per vote,
That's right.
It's
That's
gone,
a good way to look at it.
It's gone so far up.
Yeah.
So your vote people's votes is so important. And what sort of annoys me is when people are talking about, well, we have to convince, we have to, make certain that we convince this person so that they can switch their vote from last time. And, yes, that's important. It's important to try to convince people of your perspective. But really, I think that's secondary. That would be important if everybody were voting. But right now, we have such a small percentage of people who are
Yes.
voting that, we really should, before we start worrying about changing the minds of people who are already voting, how about if we get the people who aren't voting to come out and make a decision?
I agree.
And a lot of
Yeah.
folks, it's not that these folks aren't, that, like you're saying, it's not that they're not moved by the issues, it's that they've maybe been convinced that that voting is too complex.
Yes.
That this is just this is too difficult for you to understand. So don't even try.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what big money will tell you. Say, don't worry about that Prop 13 amendment that we're talking about doing, where which I just can't understand that. Well, it's pretty simple. It's big corporations have been able to get by with having their properties not taxed, except
Exactly.
increasing by 1%, and they're getting the same benefit of families who the reason why Prop 13 was enacted was because older folks their property values were going up so
And
high
their
that their
taxes were
property
up.
taxes were going so
Yeah.
high, and they're on fixed incomes. So the idea was, well, let's give some relief to these people. But corporations never die. These guys
That's
are
right.
benefiting from this tax benefit. And it's not that difficult to understand if it's explained to, and that's going to be an initiative that's on the 2020 ballot.
It is.
That's very important,
It's very important.
for funding schools and
Exactly.
funding tuition and funding.
Yes.
So
And-
it's a bottom line issue for young people.
Yes, and that's it's intricate and complicated.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is
You can
is really
understand
clear.
it.
And the league is actually in favor of that initiative.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it's those sorts of things where people say, oh, you just can't understand this, or the thing is, this was settled 40 years ago. You really don't have to revisit this. It's like, well, some would say 40 years ago when it was enacted, that was the beginning of some problems that California has still to work out, and in terms of funding of government.
yeah, we stand to gain something like $5 billion if that initiative passes. That's
$5
money that
billion
can go to
schools.
education.
Yeah.
I might be wrong about that number, but
I mean,
but
right
it's-
now the
it's
funding
huge.
the funding per student in
Yeah.
California is amongst the lowest in
Yeah.
the United States.
Yes.
And so $5 billion could go a long way towards raising the either allowing kids to go to public schools through college,
Yeah.
with having registration
Universal
fees.
preschool and things,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I went to, I think I've said on the show before, when I went to school in Davis, when I went to UC Davis. Back in 1975, 76, 77, registration fees were $212.50
Yes.
per quarter. So there was no tuition.
Yeah.
And they prided themselves on not
Yeah.
having tuition because this was a public school. And so $750 got you a year's worth of education at Davis. Then you had to pay for room and board and
Right.
books. But still, I mean, that option is not available to our young people these days. That's a major issue.
Yeah,
Public
and that is.
public education.
And when we've talked to young people, that's one of the things that comes up, along with several other things. But that's one of the major things
Yeah.
that they're
You
concerned
can't
about.
afford to go to school.
Yeah. Now, maybe I can also talk about something else that the League of Women Voters
Sure.
does during the election. How would we have 16 initiatives last time?
Yeah.
So we offer something called a pros and cons event. If people want us to come and hear us talk about the pros and cons of the initiatives, what we do is we take a look at the text, and then we look at the reason that the initiative is on the ballot,
Mm-hmm.
and then we show them how to follow the money.
Right.
And so
Right.
if we don't, in fact, we can't, when we're presenting, we can't say, well, this is what we're for or against, but at least it helps people to take a look. And if it's important enough to you that you want to vote for something, in spite of where the money comes from, that's your decision. But for young people, that's going to be important, because that's one of the things that puts them
Yes.
off about ballots.
Yes.
It's not just the top two candidates; it's also the other.
Well,
things
also I
around
think
them.
a lot of times, and it's self-serving in who it who it benefits. But dumbing down issues or trying to try to summarize an issue down to the point where it's like 15 seconds. What's your elevator speech? What's 15? How can you get your point across in 15 seconds? Can you put it on a bumper sticker? Can you put it on a postage stamp? Can you get it by and maybe in Connections, sometimes we do have longer articles, but sometimes you just can't explain something in 15 seconds.
Right. And on TV, on the TV ads, you certainly
especially
can,
if you don't have any background in the
Yeah.
issue. I mean, there has to be some background, some understanding, and you have to have some patience along with that.
Yes.
And so to the extent that we're all encouraged to, get it all across in an elevator speech, does a big disservice to some of the more complex issues that we all have to decide
we
on.
did find when we went into some of the classrooms, it was pretty obvious that some teachers have been spending time with their students, having them talk about
Critical
things like
thinking.
you could tell, yes, looking at the charts and things that they had up. So that was encouraging.
Yeah. So
Another reason that we think that this is really an important effort here is.
and what's the name of the campaign again?
Well, it's My Vote, Our Future,
My Vote,
and it's empowering the voters of tomorrow, is reaching out to those students in communities that where maybe they haven't seen voting happening. They haven't, either they are first generation here, haven't seen what the process is like, haven't been at a polling station with their parents.
Yeah. And the polling stations are going to be going away, aren't they? I mean, the thing is
that's still being determined,
Okay.
but one of the things that the Registrar of Voters in San Joaquin County really wants to do is make sure that everybody who's qualified to vote is able to vote. And so we encourage, it's a decision each individual can make, but we encourage these young people to apply for a vote by mail ballot,
Right.
because that way it gives you a little bit of time to look at things,
Right.
and you could still show up and get that I
Right.
have voted sticker and take your already marked ballot there.
Right.
But because a lot of communities of color, areas where there's a lot of poverty and things, it's not something that's at the forefront of discussions sometimes.
Right.
So we want to
Right.
make sure that everybody understands that they have the right and the responsibility to
Right.
vote.
Yeah.
And if you're 16 or 17 and you are pre-registered to vote, our San Joaquin County Registrar of Voters takes that information, and before the election, the first election where you're qualified, they'll send you a reminder and say, hey, guess what? You're eligible to vote.
So so you have to turn so when you register to vote, if you turn 18 on the day before the election day, the day of,
you're 18 on that day.
on November 4th
Yeah.
or whatever it is,
Yeah.
then you can vote
Or
on that
March
day.
3rd, which is going to be our primary
On
election
March
this year.
3rd, right?
March-
Okay,
it's
so
early
our
this year.
primary is early this year.
It's early. It's going to be part of Super Tuesday, and
Wow.
California carries a lot of weight.
It
and
does.
so we have a lot to say, because California is a microcosm of,
Yeah.
I'm going to be quiet.
Yeah.
But California is
Yeah,
an important place,
Yeah.
and we've got a lot of diversity, a lot of interests, a lot of opinions, and a lot of issues. And so we want everybody
and
to
the thing
vote
is
who can.
there's a lot of money, and when we normally we don't see the types of political ads that the other states do early on, because normally our primary is done by June. And so the thing is normally the primary candidates have been selected by
Yes.
June, and so we don't ever really have a say.
Mm-hmm.
But now this time around, it's like we're like one of the first 5 or 6 or 7 elections around, and so we're going to be seeing a whole lot of
Yes.
money poured into
Yes.
California and
Yeah.
into our media. And so it's important for you to take a look at that media, those media buys, and really take some of those claims with a major grain of salt. I'm not saying that they're not educational, but a lot of times they're misleading.
Yes.
And so I think
Yeah.
when you one of the great services that League of Women Voters provides is that it's a unbiased providing of where people stand on their issues, have them speak to their own issues, and so you're not having to look through the bias of what sort of
Exactly.
what sort of loud
Yes.
the loudest megaphone that's out
Right,
there.
exactly. And we won't do that with candidates, but we can certainly help direct people to places where they can see. I think the registrar of voters will list
Yeah.
candidates, and then they have a chance to say what they're for. Another thing that we will provide students is a handy one-pager about political parties, about the major political parties in California. I think there's 6 of them, so that when students are registering to vote, if they haven't already talked about this and made their decisions, they can look at what the major political parties represent. They don't have to choose a political party, but they can. But it's going to be important for the primary, because if you want to have a say in a certain presidential candidate, then you want to get that party's ballot. Now, some of the parties are going to say, we don't care how you're registered, you can ask for our ballot, but we won't know that until a few weeks before the election.
Yeah.
But also, anything that a young person puts on the voter registration application, they can turn right around and change it. If it's if they choose a political party, or if there's a change of address, we're also going to show them how they can go online to make those changes.
Yeah. So what is the latest date that somebody can register to vote before a primary election?
You can actually.
Is it like 90 days or 60 days?
No, well, you can actually go down and change that the day before the election. You can get a provisional ballot and things like that.
But to actually
15,
register,
I believe it's 15
okay,
days.
because now
now
the place to go on the web is to your local registrar of voters or Secretary of State, or
well, either, because we have now what we will be using are the long voter registration forms that are for San Joaquin County. But
Okay.
at a lot of events, they'll say, instead of San Joaquin County, they might say Secretary of State.
Okay.
So you can register on those, and those get sent to the Secretary of State, and that person sends them to where they
Can you
belong.
do this online? I mean,
You
so you can
can.
register online, because the thing is sometimes that you feel like somebody is outside at a grocery store or something, and you've moved,
Yeah,
and you want to register again,
And-
and so the thing is you go there and you sort of feel like, well, do I trust that person to turn in my
Well-
thing, and if they don't, and then I
Yeah.
show up on the election day and I find out that person hasn't turned in my
Yes.
registration, then
And it makes it harder for you.
It's
It's
harder
more
because then you have to
difficult.
turn in a provisional or something.
Ballot, but you still
Right.
can, because as I said, Melinda Dubroff and her wonderful staff,
Right.
I can't say enough for them. Their purpose is to make it, if you are qualified, to make it as easy as possible for you to vote.
Now, if you have registered, let's say this week I register, can I like a month later go on to some place and verify that
Yes.
I'm a registered voter?
Yes, in fact, if you just Google San Joaquin County Registrar of Voters, or you can just go to SJCROV,
Okay.
and that will send you to the site. We also have this. I didn't know what these were called until a while ago. This is a QR code.
Yes.
We're going to be giving these to the students because they know how to use them. But I found out the other day I can just hold my camera
So
over
this thing is like, I can't see ourselves, but
Yeah.
it's just like this.
It's called a QR code, and you've
Okay.
seen them a lot of
Okay,
places.
sure. Yeah,
and
right.
all you have to do is put your camera on, or your phone on
phone
the
on
camera
that,
app,
uh-huh.
and hold it over this, and it sends you right to the registrar of voters.
Okay.
Now, not every phone works as easily, but we're going to be handing these to kids. They're going to be.
But SJC Register of Voters,
Yes,
will
and
get you there.
if, let's say, they're out in front of the cafeteria and somebody says, "Oh, I don't have time to register right now," the kids can hand them a card and say you can register online. And what they'll do is they'll connect that person's name to the DMV. If they've already applied for a driver's license, they can verify their name with their signature. If they haven't done that, then the registrar of voters will take that name and that address and send them a card and say, "We need your."
So there has to be a
signature.
signature.
There
There
has
has
to
to
be
be
a
a
signature.
wet signature,
Yeah,
like a.
but they
okay.
make it as easy as possible
Okay.
for you to do that.
Okay.
And so we think that this is going to be really successful. We are trusting the young people to get their peers excited about it, and we know because we've spent some time with high schoolers, with young kids, and
Yeah.
they can be very creative.
Yeah.
And when their heart is in it,
Yeah.
they can make it work.
Yeah, and there's a lot of energy there.
There's a lot of energy.
Because there are issues I think that that people are aware of now. I think climate change is a huge issue. I think education, incarceration, just sort of brutality of any sort in the streets.
Safety, school safety, including
right, school safety,
gun safety, and
gun
things like
safety
that.
things.
That's one of the first things
I
that
mean,
comes
there's a
up.
lot of things that impact young people that really, when they look at the age of people, or they look at that, people who are running for president, say, and for president, we're talking about. That isn't the major reason why people should be. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they should be registering to vote.
Right.
But the thing is but it's not the only race out there. It's not like you vote for president and then throw away the rest of the ballot.
That's exactly right.
But when you're looking at folks who are putting out their issues, the folks who are running on the Democratic side, because we know the Republican is going to be, and you look at how they are approaching issues that affect young people. And there are a lot of folks who are addressing young people's issues. And
there are.
Yeah.
And they realize how important
and
it
it's
is.
very
They're listening. They've been listening to
and
young
it's very
people.
important for youth to stay engaged, so that those issues continue to be at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Because in 20 or 30 years, those are going to be the issues that are going to carry the day. The climate change and the education and the minimum wage and the income inequality and that sort of thing, the wealth disparity, the schools, all that stuff is they're all investments to our future, to everybody's future.
And that's why it's just as important to look down ballot to, somebody who's going to represent you in Congress, the person who's going to represent you in our state legislature, somebody who's running for the school board.
Right.
And there's all kinds of things, because a lot of important decisions are made down lower.
Yeah, because getting down, and that's the reason to get out to, and I'm sure we'll have a one or two shows between now and March when you guys are going to be having your panel discussions, and we'll have in Connections, we're going to have nonpartisan descriptions of what people stand for, and so we'll have people will have to become engaged, because it's really the most important thing that we have in our democracy.
Yeah, we realize that, and we want the young people who are going to be at this training to realize it and share that information.
So anyway, this training is for peer-to-peer. So then, in terms of if anybody wants to become involved in helping to register voters, is there any sort of regular meeting that the League of Women Voters is having to discuss how to get people engaged, how to register folks, how easy it is? Are there brochures? Is there a place that they can go?
There's a lot online, and that's where a lot of people get their information.
So League of LVW.
Well, the League of
LWV?
Women Voters of San Joaquin County.
Joaquin
If
County.
you Google that, and you can go to our website, and as I said, there's going to be some forums coming up. I don't know specifically what they are, because my focus, I'm not on the board anymore, but I'm still a member. I have to send in my check.
Yeah.
But,
Well, you're working
but
on this
my focus
project.
has been voting.
Everybody
and
needs to
youth
sort of
voting.
send in their check.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
So League the LWV
SJC.
SJC.
But I
League
would
of
say
Women
just
Voters.
Google League of Women Voters, and then you can find the
Your
local one
local,
for San Joaquin County. and
Or
there'll be a lot
if
of
you're down in
information.
Stanislaus County, or if you're up in
Right.
Sacramento or
That's true,
Calaveras,
'cause
or
you've got listeners all over the
probably
place.
Calaveras doesn't, but
Yeah.
the urban areas,
Sacramento does.
Sacramento and
has
probably
a
Stanislaus.
huge
County.
organization.
But I mean, we want to support our local.
That's right.
Yeah.
We want the
Yeah.
efforts here, but we
Yeah.
communicate with the other ones as well. So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll just leave this with you.
Yeah, a guide to
Listen.
voting in California looks
Yes.
so very nice. How do I register
Yeah.
to vote? Can I register? When? Am I registered to vote? Can I vote
and
by
that's,
mail?
And you
Very
can.
nice.
You can find out
Very
once again,
nice.
if you go to that website.
And
you'll be
so
able
all
to
these
tell.
questions are answered there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
And
they
it's
have
a good idea to check anyway, just to make sure that you are registered.
Yeah.
Because
because if you've
some
moved,
things can fall through.
and the thing is, you might have thought you registered with somebody in front of a grocery store, and maybe that didn't happen.
Right.
And so well, good. Well, voting is just so darn important.
Well, and we'll come back to you to tell you more about this program after we have our first training on Monday. But once again, anybody associated in any way with a high school, it would be well to call and see if that high school is going to participate. August 26th from 4 to 6 at the County Office of Education, where we will be training young people, students, to register their classmates, their peers.
Okay,
vote.
and it's JuliesChardt
It's
at
Julia,
Julia.
JuliaSChardt at gmail.com.
And-
I
okay.
would give you the league address, but I think it's quicker at this point to get to me.
Sure, yeah, because
and-
it's just coming up on Monday.
Yeah,
But still, the thing is also going to the league's website will give you information on this
this,
project,
yes.
and then also on
the
whatever's
the
happening
forums that are
between
coming
now
up.
and the
Yes.
primary, because it's this is I'm sure everybody who is running will say, oh, this is the most important election. This is really an important election. And this is really it's coming. I mean, keep on saying, well, the window of opportunity for, like, say, climate change is closing. Well, it is darn close to closed. I mean, a
There's
lot
some
the
things that
we've been
we're never gonna
we've been putting off so
remedy.
many things for so long.
Mm-hmm.
There are just major issues. Oh, we can't veer off so strongly. Well, maybe that you could have said that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The same sort of issues we're talking about now. But if you keep on putting off dealing with a problem, if your foundation starts to sink a little bit, and say, oh, we'll take care of that next year, the house will fall down if you
I
don't
know,
watch out.
Right. It's like, I mean, it's worse than trying to turn a big ship. You
Yeah.
have to stop, and then
Yeah.
it's an emergency situation.
Yeah, I
and
was
there are a
just-
lot of things.
Just
There's a lot of
watching
things.
there was a thing on 60 Minutes last night about plastics.
Plastics.
And it was just, you look at that sort of issue and you say, if we treated our plastic garbage like it was gold, like it was valuable, maybe we wouldn't just, we wouldn't have this problem. If we just
Are you
treated.
suggesting alchemy to turn plastic into gold?
That's a great
There
idea,
might be people
boy.
working on that.
Yeah,
They
that's
might
right.
be working on that.
That's right. Yeah, but still, it's people have to really think about what they're doing, and since we haven't been, or it's not that we haven't been, it's just that the folks who have been our leaders have been who have ignored the problem because it's been profitable for them to do so.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, as we talk to these students, we find out that that's one of the top issues they're concerned about. So they know they
Is the
get their
environment?
nose from lots of different places, but it's the health of the environment.
Yeah.
They like animals.
Well, yeah. I mean, the
So
thing is,
they-
the polar bear is going to go
Yeah.
extinct on their
Yeah.
watch,
So
and
they're aware, and it's actually it's become part of the standards for education in high school
Yeah.
now, that it's specifically environmental studies. So.
Yeah. And it's popular to point and I would say oh, it's your generation, you guys have really messed up this world, and I think every generation points to the past generation and says it's your fault for all the problems that we've had. But the thing is, it's not, you and I have been working on these issues for years, and it's not necessarily everybody of our age. It's the folks who are put into power to make the decisions that are made. Mm-hmm. And how are they put into power? They're put into power by voting. Mm-hmm. If you and I were the ones who were making the decisions on who would be creating legislation, or talking about pollution, or talking about war, or talking about gun violence, or talking about any of these issues, I think the world would be a different place. Because the thing is that if our opinions had been in the majority, I just think this would be a less violent world. And right now, what the people who are making the decisions, to me, are the folks who are benefiting from this violent, polluted world, and we've got to change that. And that's what it's up to the young people. It's important to impress that it's not a generational thing. It's the people who show up who make the decisions.
Yes, and we want students to show up. And as a member of the League
Yeah.
of Women Voters, I can't comment on
Yes, I know
those
issues.
policies or
That's
anything.
fine. Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But young people know things, and they have the passion to change things. We just need to help direct them to the polling station, however they're going to vote. We need to let them make those decisions.
That's right. You guys can stay nonpartisan and stay above the fray on things. But I tell you, on issues for Connections, to me, our charge as a Peace and Justice Network is to have a nonviolent world that is sustainable and that is peaceful and equitable. And that's our mission, and that's why we do Peace and Justice Connections on the radio. So anyway, and I have a firm belief that if you get the issues out and if you get the information out to people, that if people are properly informed, they will make the right decisions.
Yes.
They will make the decisions that would create the world that the Peace and Justice Network is shooting for, or going for. So anyway, well, very nice. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for your time this evening.
Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it, because we know that you're reaching people that we couldn't reach otherwise.
Yeah,
So.
well, good. Well, thank you. Okay, well, this is Peace and Justice Connections, talking with Julie Schardt about voting and about getting young people involved with the League of Women Voters. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Good night.